All right, y'all. We're having technical difficulties. Thank you for bearing with us. It's not, if you're on my personal page and you're listening to this was supposed to have been streamed on the Southern U page, and for whatever reason, it won't, and we don't know why. So I'll post this where you guys can check it out maybe at a later date today or maybe in an hour or two or something. But anyways, if you do happen to be listening to this and you are on your lunch break or something like that, we just wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about the reports that we're getting of EHD really kind of across the whole eastern coast and into the southeast as well. It seems to be on the rise, and we have a few people that might be able to speak on those type of things. So, Jeremy, Bray, and Matt are all with us today. Hopefully, you can see them. And Bray's out in the field and seems to be working hard. And Matt's in his truck, and Jeremy's in the office. So they're all kind of scattered out today. But I guess, guys, what are you guys seeing and hearing about in your neck of the woods? I know that we're sort of scattered in different parts of the state. We're all in Alabama, but what are you seeing when you are reading reports of EHD right now?
I'm not having anybody finding dead deer yet, but I am getting a lot of pictures of some very, very sick deer. And the way we're kind of rolling into this drought, I imagine in the next week or so, we'll start seeing some more dead deer in my part of the world.
Gotcha. Matt, I know you've kind of been in Mississippi for a while, and you've been in West Alabama, you've been in South Alabama, kind of all over the place. What are you seeing and hearing on kind of your end?
I'm not seeing any effect from EHD here at all. Not hearing any reports of sick or dead deer. I certainly haven't seen any. Um, what I have been seeing is all the terrible reports out of Ohio, Kentucky, and other parts of the eastern United States, and I guess you'd call it the middle central Midwest.
Yeah. Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, same. I've had limited calls on some sick deer, and I think it's been maybe four or five this summer now. Uh, pictures that I received are deer that are pretty far gone, so it's pretty tough to tell, by that. Even if you find them in the typical locations around water where they were running temperatures. I have found, and I'm sure Matt and Bray have too, and the number of deer we've tested through our careers is there are quite a few things that will present like HD virus. Probably the number one cause that I was seeing that presented like HD but wasn't was a lot of pneumonia. When you have crazy weather, and this year has not been as strange as far as the hot, cold, and rain as it has been the past few years, but you will see quite a few deer, when we're having that type of weather, go down with pneumonia, and it wears on them. It's chronic. It's tough for them to get over. But that was one thing I wanted to mention too was I don't think a lot of people understand that there's really two types of HD virus. One being acute, which those deer generally die within 48 hours or so within contracting HD, and then the chronic version, which I think we see more oftentimes here in the southeast with deer that get sick. They look really, really bad. You get these pictures this time of year of bucks and does. One, it's stress period on antler growth and fawning and milk production, but then you add you know, uh, either chronic HD or pneumonia to the mix, and they look terrible. A lot of times they'll make it through it though, but that's just one thing to keep in mind when you're finding deers. It's not always worst case scenario.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the pictures and stuff, and it does seem like I don't know. Maybe if it's one of those situations where because of social media, it looks worse than it is, or if this is kind of what people have been dealing with for years, and now that social media is here, it gets shared more rapidly, and people find out about it a lot faster. Um, but I know that this is kind of redundant, and most people that would be listening to this are going to know the difference. But I just want you guys to kind of go in depth for a second and talk about why this is different from CWD. They are not the same things. Like, this is not time to hit the panic button and those sort of things. So, could you guys talk about that for a second?
You want me to get it?
Sure.
Yeah, how about it?
All right. So EHD is a hemorrhagic virus that is transmitted by a midge, a small biting fly. We call them no-see-ums in the South. There's roughly 10 or so different serotypes or different variants of HD virus. So depending on what a local population of deer has been exposed to in the past really determines their reaction to it. If they have built up some immunity, which a lot of our southern deer do or have over the past, several decades, centuries, they've been exposed to it for a very long time. Where you run into problems is when a variant of HD is passed around through these midges that deer have not been exposed to yet. That's why we have more of the chronic form in the southeast now. And when they have an acute outbreak in the Midwest, it's very devastating. I wouldn't be surprised, based on what I'm seeing, if some places are not experiencing near 100% mortality on deer, especially in Ohio. Some of the estimates have them at greater than 80%. So it can take, 5, 6, 7 years to recover from that in those type situations. But it's very different than CWD, whereas you have a misfolded protein that is responsible for sickening deer, and it can be transmitted from deer to deer. It's very, very different than EHD. EHD is not transmitted from deer to deer. It is simply from the midge biting the deer.
Oh, we dropped
lost.
that.
Well,
Oh no, just when it was getting
Um,
good.
finishing up
yeah,
on that, EHD is just, it's transmitted, like he was saying, from the midge flies. It's live. It's a virus. CWD is a prion that's not live. The prions are shedded and transmitted from deer to deer. EHD, if you're going to have mortality, you're going to see it quickly. Whereas CWD, it can lay dormant for a while.
What happened?
we lost you.
You disappeared.
Oh, well, I'm back. Thanks for pulling my slack there. Anyway,
But
And EHD is survivable. We see deer
yeah.
every single year that have survived EHD. A lot of times you'll get the calls or you'll see the sloughing of the hooves or those weird hooves, and that's typically from recovering from EHD.
Yeah.
Now, for the hunter out there, let's just say, opening weekend rolls around here in the South, you get a sure enough sickly looking deer that walks past you. Are you encouraged to shoot that animal? And more so, if you do shoot it, are you encouraged, or is it okay to eat, to consume that animal, or is that something you want to steer clear of too?
That would be dependent on your location strongly, in my opinion. I mean, if you're in a CWD hot zone and you have a deer like that, then I would harvest that animal and I would have it submitted for testing. If you're outside or well outside those hot zones and neighboring zones, and it appeared to be, a deer that had been chronically ill, that's a judgment call. You're not, high chances are you're not encountering anything that's going to be transmitted, to a human. Um, personally, I try to let those deer, recover if they seem to be recovering. Um, it's not going to be a lot of meat on the bone, there for you to turn into, sorry guys, turn into a freezer filler. But, that's just, that would be up to the hunter. Now that, like I said, that would be different if I was in a hot zone or neighbor to hot zone for CWD.
And I think with EHD too, it kind of a lot of times you'll see different secondary infections depending on how sickly they got. And that's just something to keep in mind when you do harvest one of those animals, because a lot of times you'll see different lesions on the organs and stuff because it is a hemorrhaging disease. And so when you take on some of those secondary infections, again, that's a personal choice, but just pay attention to what you're working with.
Right. I mean,
And
I get,
that's where I fall. I'm not going to say a deer. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say that's kind of what my question was. I guess if you're a landowner or you have a lease or something like that, or taking those deer off the landscape, are you helping in an effort for this stuff to be contained, or is it purely like, hey, if a bug bites this deer that transmits EHD, I mean that's kind of out of my control.
Yeah, you have no control over that.
Right.
It's removing an individual deer or even all of the sick deer has absolutely no impact on the spread of that disease.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I guess that was kind of one thing I was going to ask you guys before you got out of here is what advice or what practices, what can you do, if anything, if you're a landowner, when you see signs of your deer herd starting to exhibit, okay, we may have an outbreak, we may have some EHD in our deer herd. Is there anything you can do about it, or do you just kind of have to let it run through?
Well, most states will accept tests to confirm HD virus.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing to do is just to report it to your state agency so that they can test the animal. Not going to change the outcome, but at least they gather more information and data on which serotypes of the disease are having the greatest impact. And that may lead to something in the future.
That's right.
But for the time being, it's basically just about data collection, figure out which strain through and which most impact.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I know folks have a lot of distrust in state agencies, and maybe rightly so, maybe not. That just depends on how you view it. But Squidist, Southeastern Cooperative down there at the UGA, they really, really study these EHD serotypes, and turning this data in is vital for us to understand HD virus, and it's becoming, I think more popular to talk about EHD because of its impacts and people wanting to compare it to CWD and I guess the differences and also, a lot of folks are saying that HD, kills a lot more deer than CWD, and it does. Um, but, helping veterinary science and conservationists understand these different viruses is vital to our success moving forward, managing deer herds.
So assume that you know that you've got an outbreak on your property. Is it like, hey, we need to, at least for my property, we need to just like cancel hunting season? Like we don't need to harvest any animals because they're already, a number is being done on them by this disease? Or is it okay to kind of resume activities as normal?
That's going to depend
That is
on mortality
locality
rate.
specific.
Mhm.
Yeah, it depends on your local population. It depends on the mortality rate. Rarely in the South do we have mortality rates reach a level where harvest should be halted or completely canceled. In the Midwest, however, upper Midwest, they've had mortality rates that were so high it took years to recover from. So in those cases, you may want to limit harvest.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's struggling, but
Uh, but basically, like they said, it's site specific, but also for the general public. If you can't, alter your harvest numbers or your management to contain or stop EHD, it's something that's going to run its course. You let it run its course and just react appropriately.
Gotcha.
yeah, and there's products out now that are being pushed, feeds and minerals and things like that that are supposed to help. I haven't gone down that path just yet. I know in the enclosure situation, when we start having HD breakouts, they do a variety of different things to try to protect their deer herds in those enclosures. That's obviously a different talk,
Sure.
but there are definitely some avenues that can help you if you're in that situation. But in a free range herd, it's going to be very tough. The biggest thing for free range, animals during high EHD outbreaks, unfortunately, they seem to coincide with drought. But you don't really want to get these deer really, really localized, around water, around feeder sources, things like that. You want to be able to keep that population spread out across the landscape because the more they are in contact with each other in tight groups and those midges are present at that group, then it spreads, fairly rapidly.
So that may be one thing to kind of be mindful of is maybe, I won't say shut your feeders off, but maybe don't run as many of them or spread them out, or like, is that something that, is going to make a difference anyways?
I, I don't
Well,
I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference because, like I said, most of the time it occurs in drought situations. But now, if you could fully control, the water and the food aspects, then you may have a shot. But you're not going to have a huge impact.
and Taylor, the midges, they breed around moist soil,
Mm-hmm.
so water and holes, ditches, and that sort of thing. So if you've got a lot of mineral locations on your property that are just little mud holes that deer have dug out over years and years and years, that's a perfect breeding ground for midges. Um, it. So feeders in and of themselves, I don't think are going to have an impact at all, or congregating deer around feeders, but congregation around watering holes or other
That's
type
right.
moist soil sites could definitely have an impact.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I know that like when my dad and I mean, Jeremy was part of that too, got in like Illinois. I mean, there were years up there where it's like, we would down here would just call it it's not a politically correct term or whatever. We just call it a die off. Like there's just a huge population of deer just died, and of course it could have been AHD, could have been whatever, but for whatever reason, there's not the population, especially of like mature bucks, to harvest up there as there used to be, or in years past. And so it was like there were some lean years up there where especially as an outfitter, you're trying to sell hunts, and trying to find deer to be able to hunt. So it does seem, again, you guys would know infinitely more about this than I do, but it does seem like it takes more of a toll the farther north you go.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um,
That's why, going back to enclosures, breeders, uh, that's why you see deer here that are crossed with northern genetics really, really get smoked by HD. And you will see that in our stocking locations too, where deer were restocked from northern genetics and they still have that northern genetic hanging out, deep in there. It wears on them pretty hard too.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I guess kind of maybe some parting words here for anybody who may suspect that they have EHD among their deer herd. Is there, any words of wisdom you want to give those people, or things to be looking out for?
I
Really
think if we're
report it.
gonna go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, really, they need to report it so that it can be tested and we can determine what serotypes we're running into problems with, because that has changed over time. Uh, different states are starting to see serotypes that weren't as common, and I think right now, what the most common ones were 2 and 6. Uh, Best I remember after reading the brief from Squidus, but I don't. I've slept since then, so I don't really remember honestly.
I think I know where we're at. We're kind of rolling into this drought period that we hit every year. So if we do start finding deer dead from HD, it's probably going to be within the next 2 or 3 weeks,
Yeah.
if I had to guess.
And just remember, it's not the end of the world. It may impact you for a season or two. Worst case scenario, 4 to 5, which sounds bad, but deer have been dealing with this disease for a very, very long time, and they've always recovered. So,
Yeah.
I think there was something that could be done about it, but it's not the end of the world.
Right.
That's right.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Anything you want to add, take away from before we jump off here?
I'm good.
All right, then. Well, guys, yeah, if you're suspecting of it, EHD, maybe let your state agency know about that. You know, if you find, especially if you find dead specimens on your property, there's probably a reason for that. But oh yeah, I know one thing I was going to ask. Why is it that you find a lot of these deer when they do die? It seems like they're always found, or majority of the time found near water or in water. Is there a
They're
reason for
trying,
that?
yeah,
They're
they're
trying
trying
to
to
cool
cool
off.
themselves off. They're running a temperature,
It's a
Okay,
major
running
fever.
a fever.
Yeah.
gotcha.
You can tell I'm in the South because I just said they're running a temperature.
Yep, they're running a temperature.
I should have said roll tide after that.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I got it. Well, yeah, guys, just be on the lookout and don't hit the panic button if you do. It's not really, I mean, for one, it's not the end of the world, but it's also not a whole lot you can do about it either. So, you know, no reason to go crazy over that kind of stuff if you can't help it. But appreciate you hanging out here again. I don't know how many of you are able to listen to this live, but hopefully I can get the recording posted up on Southern U as soon as I can. But we appreciate you hanging out either way.
See y'all.
Bye.
See ya.
See you guys.